All right, it's time for Football at 4 with John McMullen. And, of course, we do it every day at this time. Talk a little NFL, talk a little Eagles. And, of course, the Eagles getting ready for the Bears on Sunday. Spread was 3.5. It's now 5. Creeping its way up as people starting, I don't know, does that mean they're believing more in the Eagles or less in the Bears? Which one is it? More in the Eagles, less in the Bears?
Less in the Bears. That's what I'm going with.
All right, we'll dive into that. Doug Peterson spoke today. He said some stuff that is, typical Doug Peterson. But something he did say that kind of stood out that we'll get into, to me anyway. I don't know about to you or Johnny Mac, but there's something to me that stood out we will dive into in just a minute. But let's bring John McMullen here into the Boardwalk Honda Hotline for our daily feature, Football at 4, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, 97.3 ESPN.com. Eagles and NFL Insider John McMullen with us here. Johnny Mac, what's up, pal?
Hey, how are you guys? Real quick, I'm going to go with option C. No confidence in Mitchell Trubisky. I think that's what that line. That's what that line is about.
The Trubisky line there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you got a lot of.
It's a nice little soft spot in the schedule to face two inaccurate quarterbacks in a row, especially for the secondary, which is trying to get its feet under itself with healthy players that have just come back. So I think it was a nice little respite. But obviously you got Tom Brady and Russell Wilson coming in after, so it's going to end pretty quick.
Think about that comment, a soft spot in the schedule. This is a team that won the division. What were they, 13-3? You played in the playoffs. It came down to a missed field goal, doinking off the crossbar twice. What has happened to this Bears team to where they have not been able to, equal what they did last year?
Well, and Jeff and I talked about this a lot. This is the team we expected to have a sort of fallback season, and it's worked out that way. And it's first place schedule versus last place schedule. They were last place. They were that worst to first team. And then all of a sudden you got to play the first place schedule. And it becomes more difficult and teams adjust, and they kind of realize what Matt Nagy was doing last year, trying to mask the deficiencies of the quarterback, a lot of eyewash, a lot of motion. And people spend the off season studying that kind of stuff. And I think you see that's what happened with the Chicago Bears. And then you have to adjust back. I mean, it's a pretty high-profile social media clip today about Baker Mayfield. I think the same thing is going on there. I think, people have success and they assume nobody's going to adjust and they got everything figured out, and all of a sudden the opposition adjusts and you're caught flat-footed and you're not ready for the counter adjustment. Kind of what happened with Chip Kelly here. So it happens all the time.
John, I guess one of the big questions will be about Deshaun Jackson in this game for Sunday, and you wrote that the Eagles are optimistic Deshaun will be back. What new news or what kind of information do we have on Deshaun Jackson?
Well, he's back in practice today, as expected. He's in pads. Go to my Twitter account at JF McMullen. Photographic proof he was out there, since people want that. So he's getting closer. I think you do have to realize that, remember, the bye week is coming up after this game as well. So there might be some strategy. The Eagles want to see how he goes through this week. They're optimistic he plays Sunday. Doug has said if doctors clear him, he's not going to worry about that bye week and extra time for any of the injured players. But they're hopeful he's out there on Sunday. And if he is, it's a different team. And that's one of the reasons why they weren't gung-ho to get average receivers.
So how much
on the
today?
Trade market.
Yeah, today he was listed as limited. How much does him being out there today give us any indication? Is this basically going to be a game-time decision? I mean, is that what we're getting to at this point?
Well, my guess is yes. I mean, I think the Eagles know right now if he's going to play, barring a setback. But Doug has done this in the past, and he likes that competitive advantage card, and he tries to keep people guessing as much as possible. And that's what I think he'll do here. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, and that's what you should do. But from the Bears standpoint, I mean, they're they're going to prepare like he's going to play. And, when I said soft schedule, I meant soft schedule for the secondary. This is still a really, really good defense. This is not a soft part of the schedule of the Eagles' offense. This will be one of the most talented defenses they face all season.
Yeah, having said that, John, it's tough. I mean, we joke as we're bringing you on, it's more about the Bears with the spread. You joke it's your belief in Trubisky, but I think
lack thereof.
Exactly, no belief, I should say. So what can we expect on Sunday here? I don't think anyone's afraid of this offense, but I think people are forgetting over the last couple of days that this defense is still legit and could win this team a game if it needs to.
Yeah, no question. I mean, this is one of the best defenses in the NFL, talent-wise, scheme-wise, everything. I mean, they're legit at all three levels. A little bit hurt by the loss of Akeem Hicks is on injured reserve. That's a sort of the dominant player they have that not a lot of people talk about or know about. But they still have Khalil Mack. They still have Roquan Smith. They're still really, really talented in the secondary. I don't see Buffalo was playing better and statistically ranked better, but you have to put it in the schedule as well. I don't think they're going to face a more talented defense this season just from a personnel perspective. New England has been historic, but they've had a poor schedule as well. I don't think it gets much better than defense in today's NFL.
So what are the Bears? Are they licking their chops a little bit here as they're facing the Eagles? And if you're the Eagles, how are you preparing to go up against the Bears defense? Let's just say Deshaun Jackson's not on the field. Is it run heavy like we just saw? Is that play into the Bears' hands on defense? Just go through the matchups and the potential mismatches of the game.
Well, I think everything plays into the Bears' hands if Deshaun isn't out there. The biggest mismatch is Khalil Mack, and I would imagine typically he lines up on the left side, which would be over Lane Johnson, but they move him around a lot, and they'll see the rookie and Andre Dillard. Jason Peters was out of practice again. He's not going to play. And that's where I think they will try to make their hay. And you've seen Andre. I think Andre's got tremendous potential. I've talked about it since the summer. I think he's a natural pass rusher. The one thing he's got to improve on is what they call functional football strength, and that happens with a lot of rookie players. They just got to get stronger, and they got to get in an NFL weight room. And Khalil Mack, people will talk about his athleticism, and rightfully so, and they'll talk about his speed rush, and rightfully so, but he can also bull rush the you-know-what out of you, and that's what I think he's going to try to do against Andre Dillard. Just nobody matches up well with Khalil Mack.
John, obviously a storyline in this game will be for Jordan Howard. He'll be facing his old team here, and, he's finally kind of coming into his own here, and we know he was kind of fish out of water with the Bears last year. But, how do you kind of see his role moving forward here? Are we getting a better understanding and feel about where he kind of fits in with this team and this offense now?
I don't know, only because I think this coaching staff, much like Chicago's, and Doug talked about the differences today. Everybody thinks they're very comparable. Doug said they aren't, but, he and Matt Nagy are from the Andy Reid tree. And I think a lot of the reasons Chicago gave up on Jordan Howard, despite the fact that he was the third leading rusher in the entire NFL over the 3 years he was in Chicago, is the same reason he started the season as a backup to Miles Sanders here, in that they're looking for home run hitters. And, Miles Sanders hit a home run, and he's been hitting home runs. So I think as he gets more comfortable, I think the Eagles will try to get him back on the field more than Jordan Howard. I've been pretty clear that I think Jordan's the better player at this point. Jordan's the better option. I think you've seen that pretty consistently. Last week he carried the ball 23 times, which is the most ever in the entire Doug Peterson era. He's a volume back, and if you give him the ball 23 times, he's going to get you that kind of production. But I've also talked about the Eagles' game plan was different in Buffalo because of the 40-mile-an-hour gust, and it's not going to be that way every week. So I don't know. I hope this staff realizes what they have in Jordan Howard, but I don't know if they do.
And isn't it a very strong possibility that a lot of Miles Sanders' success has been because of his step back in his role, and Jordan Howard has been the leader of that backfield and has come to the forefront a little bit, and that maybe has allowed Miles to slip through the cracks and just have that big play ability without the pressure and workload of the number one guy.
Yeah, I think, part of it is, and by the way, Miles missed practice today, but he said it was just a precaution, and he will be back practicing tomorrow and expects to play Sunday. So just want to give that update. But I think a lot of it is people forget he only played the 1 year at Penn State because he was behind Saquon Barkley, so didn't have a ton of experience even at the college level. And he even admitted today, I talked to him today, he's like, I probably shouldn't do it, but I try to hit a home run every play, and he was joking. That's sort of been his issue. You can't hit a home run every play. And when there's 4 yards there, when a play is blocked for 4 yards, you're going to get 4 yards from Jordan Howard. You haven't been getting those 4 yards from Miles Sanders. Against the Bills, he looked his best, and it's not even about the 65-yard run. The 2 other runs, he only ran it 3 times. He ran the ball with such conviction and hit the hole, put his foot in the ground and went. So I think that's really, really positive. And if it continues to run like that, he'll get more playing time.
Real quick on the injury front here, John. Limited also today was Tim Jernigan and Sproles, and just kind of give us an update. Jernigan's kind of a big one. Sproles is almost an afterthought at this point. I've heard you comment that he probably shouldn't even have made the team with where he is age-wise and health-wise and what they have to replace him. But Jernigan's a guy to get to see him back out there. Is there a shot that he could play on Sunday?
Well, real quick, because people will yell at me on Twitter as they're wont to do. Darren deserved to make this team. Darren, from a performance standpoint, is still capable. What I said at 36, you got to make difficult decisions, and they probably should have made that difficult decision. Understand the old Patriots mentality. It's better to give up on a player a year early than a year late. I think the Eagles have had difficulty making those decisions with sentimental favorites, and I put Darren in that category. But as far as Tim, he had pads on for the first time, so since the injury, that's a positive step. And this is what Doug talked about before the trade deadline and what he considers, because of everybody coming back, and the biggest is Deshaun, but also Tim Jernigan. Nigel Bradham is not ready yet, but he'll be coming back soon. Avonte Maddox was back on the practice field. He looks like he's ready to return, and Tim's getting closer. So these are what the Eagles are considering their midseason trades back.
And, Avonte Maddox, let's bring him up because he was back at full, as you mentioned today, after that hit that he took in the Green Bay game. Does he run right back in this nickel slot corner spot if he's active in the day? Do you anticipate seeing Darby, Mills, and Maddox as the 3 corners who get the most snaps?
It's interesting. I think if he's healthy, I think if he's deemed 100%, I think yes. I mean, it's not a natural position for Sidney Jones. He's not comfortable in there. I don't think he's been all that effective. There wasn't too much bad defensively from the Eagles against the Bills, but the one play with Beasley where he just totally shook Sidney Jones in the slot, whereas Avonte is more of a natural slot corner. But to be honest, before he got hurt, he wasn't playing that well, and he was a disappointment, and the Eagles expected a lot more. So I think it might be a little mixing and matching, and Jim will try to find the hot hand, and that will include Hervan LeBlanc whenever he's able to come back as well. He's just going to look for who's playing the best, and that's going to be the slot corner.
Real quick on Jason Peters, Nigel Bradham. They both were out. You mentioned Miles Sanders as out. He was not at practice today, but that was more precautionary. Where are those two guys?
Well, I saw Nigel in the locker room. He was not limping as significantly as he was last week. So he seems to be getting closer and getting a little bit, but until he gets back on the practice field, it's hard to imagine him playing. Doug has listed him as day-to-day. Jason's out for a little bit longer. It's pretty clear he's not going to play this week. Not sure when he's going to be able to get back, but the Eagles are happy with the way Andre Dillard has handled it since Jason has gone out. But it's going to be a big test, especially if the Bears do what people expect them to do, and that's put Mac on that side quite a bit.
How has the locker room been, John, since Monday? I love asking you these locker room questions. I try and do it every week, but especially with everything that's been going on. Any difference? Any vibe change? Any upbeat change? Or
tremendous change. Yeah. Everything is copacetic. We talked about it last week.
Yep.
That's what winning does in this league. And guess what? If they lose on Sunday in a game they're not supposed to lose, the locker room's going to turn. That's just the way the NFL is.
Yeah. How much, John? I guess there's not a lot of information, obviously, but there was this players-only meeting, and it kind of came out a little bit later on in the week, or maybe after we got off the air on Friday. But does it have the feel that it was almost like, hey, it was me, let's get past it, or hey, whoever said this, we're absolving you, let's move on? Any thing leaking out about how that went and how much that had to do with them feeling like we got past all this?
Well, I think it's rare, number one, so maybe it did have something to do with it. Malcolm Jenkins was the one who confirmed that they had the players' meeting, at least to me. But, he was angry. He was angry about what Orlando Scandrick said on FS1, particularly about him. And, I often talk about Malcolm. He talks in front of political bodies. He's used to being in the public eye. He's used to public speaking. He's very clear and concise with his thoughts. And he was throwing out MFer, talking about Orlando Scandrick. He was not happy. And that might be one of the underreported stories about this trade deadline, is the veteran leadership on this team not wanting other personalities to come into this locker room, potentially create upheaval, create dissension. They want a group that has been on the same page for a number of years, and they don't want anybody from outside coming in and disrupting it.
Can't that also be, though, kind of counterintuitive to a new guy coming in and trying to gain acceptance? That's something I brought up last week was you got this group of guys who won the Super Bowl. Are they kind of putting a little bit of an invisible wall up to the newcomers and saying, you're not one of us? I mean, is that maybe how some of these newcomers feel?
I think it's got more to do. You're always bringing in new players. You're always churning because of injuries, whether it's guys like Anthony Rush and Albert Huggins and players like that. But they're young players. They're not going to create any issues. It's really veteran players who already have their feet under them in the league and maybe are used to doing things a different way. Scandrick being the perfect example. He's a 32-year-old guy. He's been in the league for over a decade. He's used to a different way of doing things. So I don't think it's about assimilating new players, especially younger players. Maybe it's not saying you can't add someone. It's saying do your due diligence on these guys and take it seriously as far as culture and as far as people's reputations and how they handle their business in the locker room.
John McMullen, football at 4 at JF McMullen. Make sure you give him a follow there for all the Eagles news this week as they get ready to take on the Chicago Bears. Rematch of last year's playoff game, the old double doink game. But this game will be in Philly. And let me ask you this, John. After playing 3 straight road games and then getting a chance to come back home against a team that's struggling, we'll dive a little bit deeper into this game later on in the week, but does this have that feel of a perfect spot, right team, right situation? We talk a lot about, it's not who you play, it's when you play them. Is this a good spot to play the Bears?
Yeah, I think it is. And I kind of mentioned, because if you look at the weakness of the Eagles, the Bears don't really have what it takes to take advantage of that week, similar to the Bills. And that's why I said soft part of the schedule, because they don't have good passing games. They don't have consistent passing games. Now, the Bears do have a really good receiver in Allen Robinson, and he could take advantage of you. But the issue is, obviously, if you're a receiver, I talk about it all the time, you need a vehicle to get you the football. And you might see a back shoulder where he just dominates. That's the type of receiver he is, almost an Alshon Jeffrey type, but a little bit younger, a little bit more juice. He might dominate on particular plays, but it's not going to be consistent because the quarterback isn't consistent. So I do think it's a good spot from that standpoint. Now, the offense has got to be able to cobble together something, and we'll see if they're able to do that. And getting Deshaun back would be very, very helpful to getting that accomplished.
Real quick, better offense, Bears or Bills?
I would say the Bears, because Nagy's a much better offensive mind than Brian Dabble. Trubisky, boy, that's tough. I think he's a slightly better quarterback than Josh Allen, at least throwing the football. I think Josh Allen is more athletic. And as a runner, although Trubisky is good running the football. But that's like saying, the tallest short person at the picnic.
That's usually me.
That's not a, well, I can't say that word. So,
not impressive. Bears defense or Bills defense? I know Bears have Mac, so that kind of seemingly puts them out there. Okay, so we like the Bears as a better team than Buffalo then?
Yeah. I mean, the Bears, like I said, defensively, and it's not just Khalil Mack. I mean, if Akeem Hicks was there, it's even better because that's a top 5 defensive tackle. And I don't, for whatever reason, because of Mack overshadowing him, some people don't recognize that, but he's on injury reserve, so that helps. But Roquan Smith is athletic as it gets. At linebacker, the secondary is tremendous. They have good corners. They have good safeties. They're good everywhere. And they're just good. Now, they've also made a change. Vic Fangio got the head coaching job, obviously, in Denver. So Chuck Pagano is the defensive coordinator. So there's a natural kind of slip-off a little bit there. But, I mean, talent's talent. Yeah. And they got a ton of talent on that side of the ball.
That's another segment we're going to have to do maybe tomorrow. How many one-and-done coaches do we see this year? Gase.
Well, Adam Gase.
Fangio. Boy Wonder up there in Cincinnati.
Boy Wonder.
They got some bad first-year seasons for some of these guys. I think Flores makes it through. Do you?
Yeah. I think he was in. And I think, just the fact that he generally gets his team to play for him, I think, he's almost 16-0 in that category. That's all he's being asked to do because they're all on the same page. Sort of like when Brett Brown was here.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I see. But Zach Taylor in Cincinnati, that thing's turned into a disaster. Gase has been a mess. Fangio, I mean, it sounds like Flacco. I don't know if he's taking a shot at Fangio so much, but didn't seem happy out there. That team seems to be a mess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think Vic will get another year just because of John Elway. He's not going to want a one-and-done guy. His reputation, I think people respect him in the league. I don't think there's a ton of respect in the league for Adam Gase. That's the issue. Certainly not a ton of respect from the players. And, you know, Zach Taylor, that's just, we joked about the Sean McVay stuff all off season. I mean, that's just hiring a guy because he knew Sean McVay. And the best decision Press Taylor ever made.
That'll be the Shanahan. This will be the Shanahan offseason, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's my coach of the year right now at the midway point. I think that team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. Everybody knows what a great offensive mind he is, and that's generally how it is. I mean, if you're going to be in the Super Bowl, near the Super Bowl, and you're a smart offensive mind, people are going to look for people that, I don't know, gave you coffee at some point.
All right, well, I'm going to go start serving coffee up there.
All right.
John McMullen at JF McMullen, football at 4 in the books. We'll talk to you tomorrow, pal.
All right, thank you, guys.
And John McMullen, like all guys, appear via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.